Hey man, it's Phil X, and you're watching Guitar Tales with Dave Cohen. And Guitar Tales, guitar tales. Like, what else do you need, right? Guitar. We're geeks, nerds, gear, inspirations, positive vibes. Look out.
You know, as far as I am concerned, that is one of the best bumpers ever. The great Phil X. He's a friend of the show. He's been on twice. And I just get a kick out of that every time because he vibes on positivity. He really does. And he was kind enough to give us that little bumper before. We have an amazing show tonight. We've decided here on Guitar Tales that we will never have any single Emmy Award-winning guests on. We're only willing to have double Emmy Award-winning guest on from this point forward. Three. Oh, is it three? You're right. 2002. Scott's in the green room saying, Dave, you dope. You're getting it wrong. 2002, 2003, and 2005. 3 Emmy Awards for a phenomenal musician, Brian Tarquin. I'm going to let Scott talk about some of the great guitar players he's recorded with, but we're really thrilled to have him on the show. And before we pull him in, I want to talk a little bit about our latest sponsor. We have Confections of a Rockstar. Check this out. It's phenomenal. I've been there many times. All of their food is delicious. It's made on premises. It's beautifully priced. Look at that. Look how beautiful it is. And doggy treats. I brought them back, and my dog loves them. And it's a fun place to visit when you're going to Asbury Park, like I will be this Thursday. Check it out over there in Asbury Park, and they're friends of the show too. It's a really great place. Scott, thanks for putting that fantastic reel together for them. So if we could pull you guys in, I'd love Scott to talk a little bit.
Hi, everybody. I'm wearing my Dr. Teeth shirt tonight because who doesn't love the Muppets?
I love them.
Yeah, we turned down many artists that many artists that only had 1 Emmy or 2 Emmys. We needed a guy that had 3.
Yeah, and I had to screw it up in the introduction.
And really, the Oscars were last night, so we're kind of like we have this motif going on with people winning awards and stuff.
We've had
so
it.
should we just jump right in? Because I got so many questions.
Oh yeah.
Welcome to the show, Brian.
Guys.
Hey man.
Thank you so much for coming on. I have your whole Wikipedia page. I only printed 3 out of the 16 pages of your accomplishments, and holy crap. I mean, you know, it really makes Scott and I so happy when we get people who are as accomplished as you are on the show. And that's really just something special.
Thank you.
We're very happy to have you. I'll throw out a couple of the names and I'll let Scott jump in. But you've recorded with Joe Satriani, Luc Ponty, let's see, who else do we have here? Steve Morse, Ron Bumblefoot, who will be on our show in April, will be recording with him, and the great Leslie West, and there's many others. So that just speaks volumes about how in demand you are and how accomplished you are.
Thank you.
Oh, absolutely. So, I guess we could start jumping in right now.
Well, we could talk about those 3 beauties in the shelf behind them there.
Yeah, let's start with that, Scott. Take over, Mr. Engel.
So Brian, how did you win those? How did you win those fabulous Emmys?
Okay, so I started composing for all my children probably back in the 90s. That all came about because I had contemporary jazz releases that were being played on the radio, and they were charting well. And so they wanted to bring me in to bring kind of a more better production to their music, more record production to their music. So I joined them, and consequently, this is how I won the Emmys.
Amazing.
But not just once. Like, how does that happen? See, I mean, what are you doing each year, because it's 2002, 2003. You got ripped off in 2004, as far as I'm concerned. But then you came back in 2005.
Maybe many people don't know this, but I actually won. I just couldn't make the show.
Yeah,
I wasn't there. I had Brian accept my award for me.
Yeah, but what are you doing that really distinguished you? And I'm going to guess that no one from that show won in other years before you, when you kind of raised their game a bit.
Well, they did win, and the way it was like a group of composers. There were, I was part of a group of composers doing the music for the show. So, and then the music supervisor and the music editor. I think during that period of time, that's when they were raising the game, and they were, bringing people in and doing a lot better than they had. So, I guess it's one of those things where it kind of goes in cycles, where some guys, have like 10 of these. Okay?
Really?
That's amazing. I have absolutely none. So I have a Planet of the Apes poster. That's what I have, and a fake knockoff of Eddie's guitar. That's what I have to do.
I have some Little League awards for my son. That's what I have.
In 1978, I won best musician in middle school. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I got none of that crap. So what does it do to your career? I mean, your career is already great, I guess. If you're doing television like you're doing and you're composing, you're already at a very high level. But let's talk about, like, 2002. You're part of a team that wins an Emmy. What happens next to your career, if anything, from that?
You can, not a hell of a lot, but what actually you get, like, more doors open if you want to go in different shows and things. But it's competitive, so I guess it did open be able to composing for shows, for other shows.
So in the composing, do you bring other musicians on board and sort of hire guys to do stuff with you, or do you play all the instruments? Or
usually I do everything myself. It depends.
You do, yeah.
Production, like if it's a very large production, I may I'll probably go out and maybe get some orchestral people and come in and maybe do some live instruments. A lot of it is like you just do it yourself.
And what kind of style? So are you basing your composition on scripts, or is it a little more broad strokes than that?
Sometimes it was script, sometimes it was really more the scene than the
Okay.
and so it could be something that's going to be, a tension building kind of thing. It could be also an action kind of composition.
And where does your sort of artistic satisfaction fall? So let's use the example. You've got a scene, right? And there's a confrontation with a couple of protagonists, right? And you have a feel for the vibe of the scene, and you come up with just the perfect music to help the actors. The actors help you, and the script helps you, and you help the actors in the script. And you obviously you've got those 3 awards behind you, so you've hit it, right? How does that degree of artistic satisfaction compare to, let's say, if you were to just write an original song where everything came from inside of you that you wanted to express it? Those 2 experiences.
Yeah, those are 2 greatly different experiences. Because the first, you're writing to the scene, so it also, the director, the producer, the music supervisor, everybody has to agree.
Right.
Sometimes you feel like this is where it should go, and they don't like it, and so you have to change it into their direction, even if you don't feel that's the direction you should go in. You certainly get a lot more satisfaction on doing the record, where it's coming from all with.
And you're in control of the whole operation. Yeah.
Yeah.
The only input is basically you.
Right.
Or your producer, unless you're producing your own stuff, which I'm pretty sure you do.
It is. When you do it for the show, is that more like job satisfaction than artistic satisfaction, or maybe a little amalgam of both?
Yeah, it's probably a little of both. Of course, you want to get it. The whole thing is about doing the right music for the scene and doing the right music that fits So you know, you want to make the client happy as well. You're wanting to make, you know, the reason you're doing is to actually.
And I'm guessing the actors don't really hear the soundtrack until the production's finished.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
so they're going to be just as surprised and happy, I would think, as some of the viewers.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's interesting. That's very interesting. And now,
Dave, you don't know this, but I wrote this.
Yeah.
Dun dun dun. I wrote that.
I like that.
It's a really suspenseful piece. 3
It
notes.
really is.
I didn't win any awards, but whatever.
Now, when you do this, when you go through that, I would imagine to be a difficult exercise because, you know, you're serving a lot of masters, right? When you're writing, when you're scoring and recording like that.
A lot going on there.
Does your skill set that you really have to fine tune for that help you when you then write your own music? Because you know you want to emote something, and you've gotten so fucking good at it, I would think, when you're writing for television and you're literally writing for a scene, right?
Yeah, you know, it's interesting because you actually wind up, you know, critiquing yourself and editing yourself, even when it's not for, you know, for a scene or something. It probably helps you be able to choose. You know, you make decisions quicker.
Okay.
And not linger on. You know, some guys they'll linger on at like 45 solos, you know, and then you have to pick that stuff. You know, to me, I try to get in the first couple of takes because you want the energy there. You want some of the improvisation doesn't get like the same thing, you know, doing over and over again,
Right.
hashing it. You know, it loses some of its I don't know, its interest and its acuteness. You know, so I think it actually does help you.
I agree. I mean, you get some solos and they're kind of iconic solos, and they're played exactly the same way every time when they're played out by certain artists, you know. But when they were in the studio coming up with that for the first time, were they going over it and over and over? You kind of tell which solos were kind of really done over and over and over again, and which ones that kind of seem like they're a little bit off the cuff. And they do have. You're right. They seem like they have more energy, even if there's a little mistake in it. You know, I heard a pop song the other day where I said that's a mistake, but they left it in a take, and you know what? I like it.
Yeah,
it doesn't sound bad. It sounds good. It sounds fresh. It sounds organic.
Yeah, it's not, and it also sounds like it did come off the cuff. Like that was something that he came up right there and then in the studio because you know, written out solos, I guess, are okay for certain things, but you know, they get to be a little, you know, right.
Yeah.
And when you're in the studio playing that, how do you convey the energy that would even come close to you just letting loose, you know, and servicing the song in real time, right?
That's the big thing is that you got to. I think you have to know how to rein it in, bring it for what purpose. For you don't want to, you know, blow the whole thing and let it go just for, you know, a small scene. You know, you want to kind of like hold it back and, you know, dramatize it and also build it up. You know, I found that the artist to learn how to build it up. Song
Okay.
build up to a crescendo, you know, a solo or to whatever. It starts too, and just kind of gives, you know, I think more dynamics.
Right. You know, we spend a lot of time, and it's funny with Scott and I don't remember whether we're on or off the air because every time I talk to Scott, it's a show. But it's funny, like if we record us just talking in the car, it's a show. But we always talk about servicing the song.
Yes.
And I would think with a guest like you, where you're as much a composer as you are a guitar player, right? I would think just in your blood, in your veins, the way you are wired, you are always servicing the song. Whereas a lot of really good guitar players are just playing good guitar without servicing the song.
Yeah, I think that's what the difference is. I think maybe guys that were in bands and stuff, that's what they do. Go and play the part and everything. And not worried about, the large picture of the song.
Right.
Because, the way I do it, I'm looking at the whole picture of the song from beginning to end. And also, I guess that's also a producer's job.
Hmm.
And so a lot of guys tell them that's too much, not enough.
Unless you're making a jamming record, where you would want Joe Satriani, right, to go ape shit and do his thing. You certainly wouldn't want to hold him back, or Luc Ponty on the violin or whatever it is. But in some respect, they are servicing that song, right, because it's a jam song, and they're expected to go hog wild on whatever track they're doing something with you on.
Yeah, well, when I do these, I give them a second to go. I oversee their solos. I mean, the reason I'm getting them is because of what they do.
Right.
I want them to go all out.
It's we've talked before. I've spent too much time thinking about when Eddie Van Halen was on Saturday Night Live, jamming with G.E. Smith, and that whole thing bothers me on so many levels. and I'm a big Eddie fan, right? I think the best part of that jam was when he wasn't playing lead and he was just playing that really cool riff with G.E. Smith. I think that was the most listenable part of the jam, not when he was going wild with his leads, because I feel like he was in a different time zone, not time zone, but a different zone than the rest of the song. But they came up with this cool riff. And when those two guys were just playing the riff together, I think that's when it was the most listenable.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, that's true. That was off the cuff too. He was
right.
Yeah.
I feel like he had to jam as many notes as he could in the time that he had to say, here I am, Eddie Van Halen. I'm supposed to be this amazing virtuoso. What do you see how many notes I shove into this song?
Yeah.
It don't really belong there.
But, he's anticipating what they're expecting.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do that, and probably not just have him lay back and.
Yeah, you're right. And then it's not really Eddie jamming with the band if he doesn't do that.
Exactly.
You're right. That's a great Guitar Tales quote. He's anticipating what they're expecting. That was pretty cool.
Well, he was. I mean, that's the way I look at
it. David Letterman too.
Yes.
Oh, I don't remember that one on Letterman.
Yeah, Letterman. That was a good one actually. He was really actually jamming.
He sat in with the band, and I guess he played the little bumpers and stuff. Plus, I guess he did a song.
Yeah, and he played some old Cream stuff too.
Oh yeah.
Oh, did he? Oh, that's very cool.
Because he got to play whatever the band was doing with the bumpers, whatever song they were covering, he would just jump in, and that must be fun. We could play your childhood songs that you sort of remember.
Yeah. Well, I remember when they did. Do you remember the jam when they did "Won't Get Fooled Again"?
Yeah.
With Sammy.
Great version.
I think that's my favorite cover of it.
It's really
of that
good.
Tune.
Good cover. Yeah, it's on that album too. That live record. Yeah, that's actually really good. They played that a lot on radio.
And I'm a Who fanatic, and they kind of did it justice, and most bands really can't.
Yeah, playing all the keyboard parts and the guitar parts.
I know. That's one where it's perfect for Eddie. How many people could do that?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about Brian's record that he did, Brothers in Arms.
Yeah, what's the history of that?
Well, Brothers in Arms and Beyond the Warrior's Eyes, they were all done at the same time. Time I was living, I have a mobile studio, kind of like a Rolling Stones mobile studio. And at the time I was living up in Woodstock, and that was over the pandemic. And so everybody was on lockdown. So I was putting this album together, and I started talking to everyone and wound up doing 19 songs. And I wanted to break it into genres. So the heavy metal stuff with Joe and Vinnie Moore and all of that, I thought that should be its own album, Brothers in Arms. And then the more fusion stuff with Eric Johnson and Ponty and Steve Morse would be a separate release. I thought it would do the justice to both of them. That's how the whole thing came about. Hope for the War.
So I don't. You're a veteran too, aren't you?
No, I did a stint in the ROTC in the 80s, but
Okay.
I'm saying
I saw the flag behind you, and I thought maybe you were a.
Dad was a Marine in World War II.
Okay.
There you go. We were smelling in a wonderful way your loyalty
Yeah.
to the armed services, which
Because
is a great thing.
you donate a bunch of money, right? I mean, there's some proceeds that go to that effort. And I have a little QR code here if you want to donate. It's called Hope for the Warriors. You can just click that QR code and make a donation. We appreciate that.
But right directly to them.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's fantastic. That really is.
Yeah, I felt like giving back to them, and another thing is they're probably not even aware of a lot of things. People's lives are busy. They probably are aware of what that go through coming back home. And
I used to play the hospital in my area when I was with a duet, and I finished singing, I don't know, My Way or something. and there were a lot of the guys are in wheelchair bound stuff, and they tried to start to stand up to give me a standing ovation. I'm like, whoa, no, sit down. Oh my God. At the VA, they were a terrific bunch of guys. I used to do a bunch of gigs there each year, totally free, just go in there and make them happy, and they really appreciate it. And just really cool to talk with everybody.
Yeah, they're great.
It's really nice stuff, and you're taking all of your different musical interests and funneling them all to that one great place, right?
Mm.
Yeah, basically, everything, because it's all instrumental, and so a lot of these guys, are guys I looked up to.
Oh yeah,
and then to give back to like the veterans is cool, and and I compose them all specific to them, and each artist and for the veterans. So
it's always a noble cause to give back like that in anything, and we've had many guests on that have their own charities, as do I. It makes you feel good and makes them feel good. It feels like it's not just about music. It feels like your music is actually physically helping somebody.
it is.
and then I would imagine that's a good driving force when you're creating this stuff. That it's not just for your pocketbook.
Yeah, that's actually I was going to say that's the driving force for creating it, because it's like you're creating a really good reason. It's not just creating it, just create it. It's for a good cause.
Yeah. And when you go to record that music, it occurred to me as we're chatting here that under your belt, in addition to doing, the sort of pay for hire stuff that we might call it for television, your passion work, your passion work. You said two things. You said fusion and heavy metal, and they're obviously related, but they're also kind of different. And is one of the two a little more near and dear to your heart? Do you just have an equal love of both of those styles?
When you look at heavy metal is almost like fusion in the sense that you got real players, really good players.
Right.
You have improvisation. Jazz and metal, they're not that far apart in that sense. Musically, of course, they are, but I always loved. I came from rock and roll, came from British invasion, all of that. So that really
right. And really, if you think about it, if you think of some of the older British, I mean, think about Jeff Beck.
Yeah.
He's heavy metal and he's fusion, wrapped up in one guy.
That's exactly it. Yeah, and that was what's so cool about him, because you can see the whole evolution back in his career.
Yeah,
it was the Yardbirds, and then his group, and Zeppelin based. Jimmy Page based Zeppelin all on Jeff Beck's albums that did so well, because it was like hard rock blues.
Yeah, and that was my next question: is Led Zeppelin heavy metal?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. Is it heavy metal? Is it not? He never had the tone that metal did.
Right.
But songs, definitely, I think opened that genre. It was there's some songs that were really heavy for them, even though he may not be, his guitar rhythm is as heavy as, say, like Tony Iommi or somebody, but it still, I think, evokes the same sense. them really drove the bus there, making it
Right.
that little heavy beat. Same way, Richie Blackmore was never that overdriven of a guitarist as far as his tone goes, but it was John Lord that had that rhythm of distortion in his organ through the Marshall that really drove.
And those are, and it's almost like those two things that were together. Then they took slightly different paths as they moved on. When you think about fusion, and heavy metal, because they were. You're right. At the era that you're talking about, they were kind of married to some extent.
They were, and then you look at early Mahavishnu orchestra stuff. That's like metal, meets LSD. I mean, it was just
literally.
I had a chance to meet Billy Cobham years ago when he was playing a triple snare, triple bass drum kit with all the stands moved out of the way, so they had developed this thing where he can just swivel his chair and hit all the pedals. I was like floored. It was a really cool moment to see him play that thing.
He's one hell of a drummer, I'll tell you.
Yeah. I've got upstairs. I've got a Billy Cobham vinyl. I do. I don't know. I don't even know if I've listened to it too many times, but I do own one.
All right, you're gonna have to put it on the wall for next week, just for me.
I will do it for you.
What's the name of it? Which one is it?
I don't even remember. I'd have to run upstairs, but every so often I replace the guys behind me, and I was just paging through my not so impressive vinyl collection. I'm like, I have a Billy Cobham record. It's sort of a weird thing to own. But for you, Scott, I'll put it up there.
Yeah, I liked Magic. I liked Inner Conflicts. I love all that stuff.
Big one with Tommy Bolin on it and Jan Hammer. I mean that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Almost blew out my speakers playing one of his CDs. I forget what the hell it was called. Warning. It says warning. If you cannot play this record louder, it'll screw up your stereo system. And guess what?
Of course,
it's because of my stereo system.
Yeah, how do you not play it loud when it says don't play it loud?
Yeah, absolutely. That's the first thing I was going to do. Oh yeah.
How was that, Scott?
Oh no, Brian! Don't freeze! Don't freeze! Did Brian freeze?
Hopefully, he's not frozen in real life.
No, he better
only on the screen. There you go. We're getting movement again a little bit.
He's getting choppy. His internet connection's good.
Yeah, I think. Wait.
You guys are gonna make me work hard editing the show, aren't you?
Yes.
Let's see.
We could see you. We could see you're smiling, but we can't hear you right now.
There he goes. I think he's back.
A little pixelated, but not too bad. There we go.
Am I frozen? Still there?
No. Oh, you unfroze. You unfroze. There
he's
we
back.
go.
He came back to life.
That's right.
Just like
it's alive.
Like Walt Disney's frozen head. Is that
That's
true?
right.
They froze Walt Disney's head and they're gonna thaw him out and bring him back to life someday.
Do they have it really?
I have heard that.
There we go.
So there we go. Now you're crystal clear again. So that's good.
So the early days of Brian, were you in a bunch of rock bands and stuff? You were primarily a guitar player.
Yeah. Do
you remember the first song you ever wrote? Was it terrible? I remember mine. Oof.
It was like, I grew up in New York City, so it was. I originally wanted to do drums, but that would be in an apartment in New York City was out.
Yeah.
So, went to guitar, and it was great. I started some bands. We had some high school bands. We played some pubs and bars, and and things like that. And then as I kind of, I did write some songs, but I always, what blew me away is when I did hear Wired for the first time and Jeff Beck live with Jan Hammer. I said, that's it. That's what I want to do, because nobody really played like that.
Oh, I love There and Back. That's one of my favorite Beck albums.
Yeah,
with Jan Hammer.
Blow by Blow, and all those albums were just terrific. And so it was like, wow, I something like that would be.
Well, there he goes. Did you have Wired on the wall? What are you doing? You're interrupting our guest, you crazy. You can't hear me because the interview's on.
There we go.
What are you doing? You know how hard I'm going to have to edit this show out? He was just saying something interesting. You wanted to get the Wired record off the wall, I know.
Blow by Blow.
Oh, Blow by Blow, sorry.
Poor Scott.
And that was by fifth Beatle there, George Martin.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty cool. See, we got something good out of it, Scott.
It's all good.
Yeah, it's all good.
I always drop in nice little pictures and stuff to cover these things up.
Yeah. Poor Scott. Poor Scott. Well, you know what's interesting? Now that I said it, it won't happen. My dog isn't barking.
Shoo! Don't even bring that up. It's
But
good thing we have mostly animal lovers on the show because he actually ate one of Dave's guitars during Dave Gellis's interview. Dave was with blood, sweat, and tears.
And
yeah, he ate the knobs off his guitar.
literally in the middle, I was wondering why I had it on a guitar stand next to me, and he was shockingly well behaved. And Dave is talking about something really interesting. And I have to admit, I was a little nervous to have Dave on. We didn't know him yet. And he's, just like you, he's very accomplished. And I had to interrupt the entire show because I looked down and two of the volume pot covers were just missing. And I realized my 25-pound dog had consumed them. And I showed Dave, and it became pretty funny because I held up
Dave
my guitar.
now calls that guitar Alpo. That's the new name for the guitar.
That's all. All right, Scott made a clip there. That's a good one. But yeah, he ate two volume pots on the show.
Chuck Wagon.
Yeah. That works.
If it's a country band.
That would be a good country name. So you start out rock and roll, right? You're playing around New York City, and then you discover Jeff Beck. And then where did that discovery and that inclination take you?
Well, I kind of discovered it during my teenage years, and I was trying to get the band to do like Blue Wind or Freeway Jam, but of course, we weren't that good yet. And so we had to build up to that. And then in college, I started composing and writing, and I started thinking, what? They came out with, that drum machines and bass in it and everything. Then, as I was doing that, I was actually, I went to audio engineering. So I wanted to really, audio production school in the city. So I'm really interested in doing that. I started working for studios, kind of honing your craft.
And learning as you go.
That's really good stuff. And that obviously is setting the stage to give you your great career in composition for television, and I would imagine many other mediums, right?
One of the first jobs I got for a jingle house. It's like a big jingle house on Fifth Avenue. It was like, I was going, then I moved to California, and then I really got a big eye opener.
To get a real education out there.
Yeah. and when you hit I'm assuming LA, right? That's heavy metal heaven out there. Whether they play it or not, they all look it out there, right? They're all in their heavy metal garb in LA, right?
Especially at the time. Yeah, this is like the very early 90s. So they still were, hanging on the, the Sunset Strip and Zari, all of that stuff.
Yeah.
The pay to play thing, the whole thing. It was there, and but it started to die because right then, the Seattle scene broke.
Yeah, it's good stuff, and then all of that, it's just bringing you to where we are today, and the next thing that maybe just as sort of we pull it all together, what's next for Brian Tarquin?
You mean in the future?
Well, so what are you working on these days, and where will this, take you? Where do you see it going?
I'm working on some new tracks for a follow-up, but it probably won't be a full album, maybe either an EP or I may release it as singles. I'm working with Gus G on a track, and then I'm going to with Al Di Meola.
Oh, wow.
A couple other guys, and so I'm this is the very early stages of it. I'm also working on. I have a catalog, my label, plus a television and film catalog called First Choice Music, and so I have a deal with APM, which is owned by Universal Sony, and so they represent it worldwide for all TV film placements. So what I'm doing now is I'm updating the catalog all the time.
Oh, that's got to be a big job.
Yeah. I do it with my dear friend Hal Lindis, Dire Straits. So we kind of get together and we do, because our styles are very different. So we can kind of play off each other and complement each other on, like, some new, rock orchestral, arrangements, just all sorts of interesting stuff.
Well, that's good stuff. And this is the question we ask. It's almost a dated question at this point, but how do people find you?
Oh, well, just, you could go on Spotify. You can go on, BrianTarquin.com, dhpmusic.com, any of those.
Well, and Scott is just putting them all up on the screen, making our job easier. But this is good stuff. We want to thank you so much for joining us. Yeah, click on it. Click on it right there. I'm pointing at my screen.
Oh, great. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thanks for coming on. It's been great.
I'm glad we got it together and you were able to get on, because we had some technical issues tonight, but I think all in all went pretty well.
Yeah. And we learned about the diversion of heavy metal and fusion. That's a pretty cool concept. I never thought of that before.
I was saying that. I just wanted to mention that, John Lord's fifths on the organ became power chords for the guitar, which were fifths, right?
Oh, Purple and Led Zeppelin and, of course, Sabbath. They really, I love those guys. And in their early days, they completely paved the way to what heavy metal would become. And Priest too. I love those guys. They were
legendary.
Yeah.
And they should all be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. End of story. Let's not go there, but let's just.
I agree with Mr. Scott. I do. Well, thank you so much for joining us tonight. It's been a lot of fun. And as it always is, we're pushing 45 minutes. It feels like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Went by fast, didn't it?
Yeah, it always does, because it's just people talking music. So it's so much fun.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again. And this is Dave Cohen signing off on Guitar Tales, and Scott.
Yes, sir. We can catch all our shows on YouTube, and we're running our catalog every Thursday night at 7 p.m. Eastern. So they'll be streaming across multiple platforms, not just YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram, and X, Twitter, whatever the hell it is.
Right.
And some big guests coming up. Past shows that are very big, doing well. I think Ace Frehley's show's up to 17,000 views now, or something like that. Our Van Halen specials up there. Phil X's show. I know the Don Jameson's show is doing really well. So they're all there for you to check out. And of course, Brian's will be up there as well. And we'll see you soon, of course. And all the audio is on
Audible.
Streaming platforms all over the place.
Yeah.
So that's all I have to. I'm done plugging.
All righty. And thank you, Brian.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.